how do you want to be titled? Owner, director,
Founder.
Brilliant.
founder.
Founder.
All right.
Okay, that's what
Owner.
Owner.
My mother was the founder. I'll talk about that if you ask.
Okay, and can you say and spell your name for me real quick, so I'll have it on tape?
Spell it? Justin is my first name. Last name is Trodahl, Trodahl.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Talk about this business.
Okay,
You
well,
and this business.
all right, well, to really understand this business, you have to understand that I grew up with a family of nursing and medical, my mom's side, and I grew up in the nursing home world. My mom was working in the geriatric arena.
Try and look this way.
Am I looking at you or?
Me.
Just a catfish.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me start over?
Yeah.
Let me start over. Can I just swig real quick? This ain't decaf, I hope, because you did that to me the other day.
I wouldn't give you decaf. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
She instructed all the staff to not give me any caffeinated drinks.
It's not good for his heart, and I'm a nurse.
He was raging. Was he angry at everybody? And you're like, no decaf.
Thank you very much,
You
Wayne.
don't work out? Okay.
All right, I'll start over.
Talk to me, start over.
And now I'm on to you, okay.
Run to me.
To understand the story of how Tiffin House came about, my mother was a nurse. From the time I was born, she worked in nursing homes throughout the Northwest. And she would bring me all the time to be around the residents. And I saw how the care was. And then when I went off to college, I became a therapist. And I worked in the elder arena, geriatrics. I worked in different venues, but mostly I worked in the rehab setting, taking care of people in the nursing homes, be it hip fractures, strokes. That was my specialty, but I had a lot of experience with the dementia world. And I was always taken back by how the dementia population wasn't given the right setting to succeed. They weren't given the right staffing. Most of them were put behind glass doors that were locked, and it was like a forgotten population. And I saw that also as a young man going with my mother. But in 1994, my mom decided one day, she came home and she felt guilt for how the population was being taken care of dementia and Alzheimer's. And she just went out and decided, I'm going to start a little home and make it a care home. And it was the first in Washington State. They didn't even know how to license it. And when she started it, was in the process of putting it together, all the family, everybody that had an opinion told her, don't do it. You're going to fail. It's not going to work. And you're too old to start something like this and lose all your equity in your home and everything you have. And Mike Geiger, my stepdad, he backed her 100%. And so to honor him, he was from Tiffin, Ohio. So she called it Tiffin House. And I would go home and see how the residents were taken care of at her place in stark contrast to what I was seeing where I was at in Texas. And I would go in and the house smelled, apple pie was cooking. Everybody's hair was done. They were always smiling. Their makeup was on. There was no smell of urine. It was just a wonderful environment. All the staff knew the residents and their history. They knew what was going on prior. And something that resonated with me, talking to my mom, was the dignity of it. These people were school teachers. They were businessmen. They were servicemen. They did amazing things in their lives. And just because they have dementia and they're no longer able to take care of themselves, they weren't given the same respect in terms of the setting they were in, as opposed to what I was seeing at my mom's place. And I was just in awe of how that was set up. And for every time I would go home, it was the same. It wasn't just a once in a while thing. It was all the time. I was inspired by it. But I was also, at that point, on active duty in the Army. And then 9/11 occurred, and the Army asked me if I wanted to go fly Apache helicopters because I was medical, and I said that would be something I would like to do. And I went into that world, and I did that to the point of after coming back in 2007 from Iraq, I decided I was going to wait to start a Tiffin house until after I retired. But I said, you know what? I need to do this now. And what really spurred it was I was working for a place in Houston. I was basically brought in as a quality control person. I was trying to help them fix their broken wheel of the business. And the owner didn't have respect for his staff. And I went in to his office one day and I said, you have a problem here in that I work here and I don't know half the people that are working on the floor. Your turnover is weekly, monthly. I said, you need to get better staff, more of them, and train them. And he said, they're a dime a dozen, I'll get more. And I said, if that's how you feel about the people who are doing the direct care of your residents, then I'm gonna have to go because I can't be a part of this. Because a little piece of me is dying inside when I'm talking to families, and I know that no matter what I say, it's not gonna be done. So I started looking all over, and I was trying to find a place. And I read a magazine article about Georgetown, Texas, and how it was a wonderful new town. It was growing, and I was thinking of Texas, Georgetown, because I was at Fort Hood in 1992, and I was like, that's a cow town. What's there? And I drove up here, and I was like, what a great town. This place has grown, and it's so beautiful. And I met a really wonderful builder, Bradley Cochran. And to me, it was very, very important when I started this business that I got to build it the way I wanted to build it. I wanted it to be a house. I wanted the inside you can't see in the rafters and the walls. It has all the security stuff and the safety stuff, but I went out of my way to make it hidden so that when you're in the home, you don't even realize that that stuff's there. I set up and went down to the state of Texas, the headquarters, and I sat in that office with Fred Worley. He was the head guy at the time, and we went over the plans, and I said, I want this to be done this exact way, and he backed me on it. So we got the plan set up, and we started to build it, designing it, the first one in 2008. And at that point, my mom was very involved in this. I think she had a little bit of pride that I was taking on the Tiffin mantle and moving it to Texas. And so she actually flew down and helped me hang up the pictures. Mind you, she bought them all because she understood that what the inside needed to be. I did too, but she was really in tune with the Americana, the Norman Rockwell, the not abstract art, but we're talking about pictures of people and children and things that the residents could see, and it resonated with them. And so she came down, we set this all up, and I always like to tell this story because when the state inspector came out, he'd been doing this, he retired that year. It was one of his last inspections. He said, I have not seen anything like this in all my years. He goes, this place is so impressive. And as we were walking down the hall, he saw a picture of, it's a little girl with the ice cream cone in her hand and the dog's licking it. And now my mom would say, oh, I knew it exactly that is. And I was like, I know it, I couldn't tell you who the artist was, but he stopped in his tracks, called his sister and said, you're not gonna believe this, but this guy has the same picture in his hallway that you had in your room growing up. Now this inspector was in his late 60s, and so that went back to that time frame. And what was important about that was, it gets lost in this business. We're trying to set up a comfortable, warm, inviting setting, not for the family, but for the person with dementia. And often what gets muddled in this process is people will go looking for places and they'll look for something that they like. It's a nice hotel looking setup. It's got chandeliers hanging in, huge foyers and marble floor, whatever you want to call it. But that is just the facade. And what really matters is the people that are taking care of your loved one. And is the setting something that is a good transition? Because when someone has dementia, they are usually in a small home in the country somewhere. And that transition from that setting to a facility, a home, it can be daunting to them to go from a place where they have 1 or 2 people in the home, maybe less, to 100 beds, 50 beds, and people that they don't know. And so that when I was in this process, one of the things that I wanted to make it very clear was I wanted this to be as home-like as possible, where the residents could walk through the kitchen, they could go throughout the house, there was a freedom, they were loved and cared for, but there wasn't we're gonna eat at 6 o'clock in the morning and that's it. We make breakfast when they wake up. If they wanna sleep until 8 o'clock, then by God, they've lived 85 years on this earth. Let them wake up at 8 o'clock. I myself spent most of my military career running around in the dark, wondering why did I have to get up this early to go run through the woods when I would like to be in bed. I retired last 2 years ago, and I just would say, you know what? 7:30 sounds a lot better than 4:30. I want them to be able to get up and go to bed when they want. I want them to be able to eat what they want. If we make a meal and they don't want that for dinner, then my staff will make something else for them. If they want a yogurt at 10 o'clock in the morning, well, go get it. Go to the fridge. In my time in the nursing home, there was eating time and then there was no other time. It was pulling teeth to have food given to the residents off the normal meal time. The only time I ever saw those carts for food was when the state was in the building doing an inspection. That's when they would play the game, so to speak, and they were marketing to the time. I tell families when they come to see Tiffin House, just walk through anytime. Walk in, don't even set up an dinner. Just come and see. And do the same at other places. And watch what happens when they don't know you're coming and they can't stage it. Because I don't stage anything. It's the same all the time. So when I put this together, I was adamant about the house being a certain way. And I was adamant about my staff. Personally, I went in and trained every one of my employees. I do a 3-hour block on dementia. And that's everybody that works for me. And I renew that. I'm always educating because I want them to understand the disease process and why they might be doing certain things. Why medication may not be the answer to every problem. We live in a time of over-medication. When I first was in the nursing world, my mom, I remember they used to strap people to the bed. They used to tie them down, posy vest to the chair if they were acting up, if they were an Alzheimer's patient that was wandering. I mean, wandering, not necessarily hitting or being violent, but just getting into people's drawers or whatever. So that was the way they did it. And in the 90s, there was a change where they said, we can't tie people down anymore, that's inhumane. So then, well, the big corporation said, well, we don't have money for staff. We're not gonna spend our money on more people to take care of them, so let's just do chemical restraints. And so that's when that whole thing started, where they would just say, let's give them more Haldol, whatever, spare. You name it, and we'll put them in a point where they can't or won't go around and wander. And I was in the therapy world in the 90s. I remember distinctly, I was taking care of a resident, and I had her brought down by the nurses to my therapy room, and she was drooling on herself, and she couldn't even lift her head up. And I went down to the nurses station. I said, what is going on? And they said, well, she was wandering, so we had to give her some meds to keep her from wandering. What crime is it to wander? And the reason she's wandering is because they changed her hall like 3 times. She didn't even know where her room was at. And they didn't have enough staff. They never had enough staff. It broke my heart to see how people would sit in their own urine. They would sit in the food on their chest from breakfast when it was...
Some of this is just decency.
It is. It's just taking care of people and doing the right thing. Doing the right thing when no one's watching. Character goes a long way. So when I was taking all that history in my mind, and there's a lot, I could talk hours about this. I took those little nuggets that I learned, and the stuff that my mom and I would talk about, we would have a cup of coffee and talk throughout the night, passionate about doing this the right way. Can I go to bed at night as the owner and go, I know that I did everything I could. My staff did everything they could. When I walk through HEB, do I have to duck behind the cereal aisle because I don't want to see somebody that was upset at me? I want them to respect me. They come back years later and say, thank you for what you did. I say, that shouldn't be arrogant by any means because it's my staff that does the work. But when I set it up, I took the time to train and pick a culture. I brought people in that fit the mold. My time in the Army was real important in this and that. I remember it was like being a private, doing a bunch of work and having guys get paid the same amount of money who stood around. I remember how I felt about not being able to take that person that was doing, taking away from the team and have them not be a part of it. Either you lead, follow, or get out of the way. Be a part of the team, lead it, or move on. And I wanted there to be people here that understood what we were doing and they were bought in. Their heart was in it. There was emotion. I cry when I talk about this. I cry when I talk about families. There's a passion for me that these people, what they do, who they're taking care of, because this is not just a widget. This is somebody's mom or dad, husband or wife. This is a person who is loved, and the family is at a point of desperation in most cases where they've tried to take care of them and they just can't anymore. And I want them to be able to go home at night and sleep. And I impart this on the staff. And my staff, tell you what, they took it, hook, line, and sinker, and they went. And I don't even have to be here for them to do the right thing, which is pretty special. My staff will just do the right thing. They'll police themselves. They'll make sure everyone's doing the work they're supposed to be doing. They are amazing, amazing from the nurses and the management side all the way down to the news person on the floor. They are bought in. There's a passion for taking care of people. And not just the residents, the family members too, because when you're in this business and you're taking care of someone with dementia, you also have the family side dynamic where they're coming in and they need to talk. They need a hug. They need to be loved. And for me, it's so personal that when you have someone come in, I want it to be welcoming. I want them to feel like they can always come in and talk to the staff, that we go out of our way to greet people at the door, that we know that we're so proud of what we provide. The families are going to come in and they're going to see it. They're going to go, wow. I walk in, the first thing I smell is breakfast cooking. I see that my husband and wife, my mom and my dad, their hair is done. They're clean. Their clothes are crisp. They are smiling. Things are good. And I can now relax and enjoy my time with my loved one instead of being the white knight running around trying to fix everything and watching the staff and making sure they're not doing something, and I have to make sure they stop that. And when I first opened up, I had a lady that moved in, and she moved her husband in at the demands of the kids. She had taken care of him to the point where she was so tired she didn't even know she was tired. And she and I sat on the front steps and she cried, and I said, you need to just go take care of yourself for a few days. Go sleep. Go home. We'll take care of it. And she came back a week later, and I didn't even recognize her. Her hair was done. Her face had filled in. And she said to me, I didn't realize how tired I was until I actually slept a few nights. And I realized I was exhausted, mentally, physically. And now I can come in and I can visit my husband, and I'm not angry about the fact that he kept me up all night, because I'm trying to take care of him, and in the middle of the night he's up wondering. And now I can just come in and be me, and I could be the spouse. And I get that from a lot of families, and it warms me up. It makes me feel good because I see the product that families will talk to families about this, because it's something that you can't fake it. You can fake marketing. You could put a beautiful facade on a building. You can, dress it up. But backside marketing is where it's at. My grandpa Trodall had a store, and he always talked about taking care of people, not just on the front side when you tell them that you're going to do something, but actually doing it. So when you are done, they'll look back and go, they did the right thing all the way through. And that's something that doesn't get done a lot in this business, sadly.
You know, it's funny, there are things that work about this place because of the Army.
I mean, there's some things about it. The girls may say I'm a little bit too much on the discipline side, but a matter of fact, this is it. This is how we do it. And I want you to be on your game. I want you to come in the door, and I want you to be ready. And it's a fun ready. It's a passion. I talk to the staff in the class I teach, and I teach this to families too. I do free lectures. Anybody wants, I've been to church recently and I talked to 60 people. I want people to know and understand the disease process, because I think the more they learn, the more they're apt to pick the right choices, and they're going to make the right decisions for their loved one. But that there is a bit of that, the discipline and how we do the regiment and making sure that we get things done, the love, to make sure that we don't miss anything when it comes to cleanliness. I always get a kick out of this because I have so many families come to me and say, this place is so immaculate. It's always so clean. And cleanliness is next to godliness. Like if you have a clean place, it smells good, it's inviting. It makes everybody happier.